Well, let's call this meeting of the Affordable Housing Commission to order. Can we get a roll call?
Meghan Markle,
Here.
Samantha Cooley,
Here.
Randy Rickert,
Here.
Casey Banks,
Here.
Judy Brown,
Here.
and that's that.
Thank you. Do we have any registered public comments or anyone in the waiting room?
We do not.
Okay.
For both of them.
Still waiting for the day. Are we ready to approve minutes? Does anyone have any items that they saw that needed correction?
And see this goes out. But first, I have to tell you the rules. I want to we have show the judge. I want to the rules. I don't get.
I don't think so. So I move that we approve the minutes of the April 28th, 2026 meeting. Is it 28th? Did I get it the right?
I mean, as a judge here, I think it's in my duty
There's a second?
to be perfectly honest with what I saw. And I don't want to get.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Samantha. Raise your hand if you're in favor of approving the meeting minutes.
So I think
Gonna need a
I'm
verbal.
raising
Thank you.
raising my hand. Sorry, I'm still recovering from surgery. I am not willing to put myself on camera.
That's fine. We'll just visual or audio will work for voting. Okay, well, that passes. So we are ready to hear a presentation about the Housing Trust Resolution and NOFA memorandum.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone had a minute to look at their packet materials and kind of digest what was in there. So I put together the memorandum kind of just to go over our previous thoughts and discussion around proposing a new NOFA. And the group, myself included, wanted to make sure that we all had a good understanding of following all of the rules and regs that had been established and making sure that we were following procedure. So I was able to find the archive of previous resolutions that took place over a series of years. Pretty much, I think it was 2012 to 2019, if I remember correctly, or 2021. I think that was the latest one, and they basically built off of one another. So that last one encompassed kind of everything, and each new resolution replaced the previous. So the most recent one has everything in there, and you'll notice that a lot of language, I think especially from section 8 in there, that looks like it's where that previous group and the previous staff worked to come up with the NOFA scoring rubric criteria. So those two things seem to work in concert with one another. So I felt pretty good about that, and that we have an understanding now of where that came from and what its intention was. So it seems like the only departure really was, and there is some language in there that allows for kind of the realities of any given year. But I think what was typical previously was that there was a yearly NOFA. So, and then the difference also previously, and this group has worked within the parameters of like the breakdown of each, there's like half a dozen different types of allocations, both grant and loan programs. So, uh, depending on how much was in the account, and it looked like there was math involved based on a percentage for each type of program. So after finding that, the documentation, I was looking for, is there language in there that would allow us to do a larger allocation, perhaps all of it? And after looking at that with the director, I believe the answer is yes. So that's what the memorandum was aiming to convey. So to kind of recap, our finance director gave us that total that's in the account currently, which is a little over $72,000. What I found in the research of those resolutions that we withhold a 5% administration fee from that, bringing a potential award to $68,568.15. I believe there's some interest accruing on that, so it might be a tiny bit more, but that's pretty current. And then what we could do, the language in the resolution supports a competitive award. So that was what I was talking about. And I guess historically that could have been a grant award or a loan award. And I did find documentation in previous years that that was a loan award. But also per our previous discussions, just with the staffing that we have currently, it would be easier to administrate a grant award. But of course, we can discuss that per the desires of the commission. So yeah, I think that's it. Inside the memorandum, I included some key sections that kind of outline the competitive grant award program, section 7, and then section 8. And again, that section 8 is really mirroring what's in our scoring rubric on our NOFAs that we post. So with that, we can open it up to discussion amongst the group, questions, discussion about that.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the resolutions themselves before we move on to the next round NOFAs. I want to make sure I understand which one was the most recent resolution. I'm looking at the one that starts on page 11 of the packet, 2021-3730. Was that the most recent one, or is there one further down?
That's the most recent one.
And so section 8 is where the scoring rubric essentially is spelled out in the resolution, right?
Correct.
So is it true then that these guidelines were like binding by resolution when the rubric was kind of set aside before because we didn't realize that they were in the resolution?
What do you mean set aside?
When we were talking about the Spark program's eligibility, we were looking at the scoring rubric. And there was debate on whether or not the scoring rubric could be kind of set aside and not be binding. But if what was in the scoring rubric was essentially in the resolution, I'm just trying to understand, were those requirements actually binding because they were in the resolution itself?
Yeah, I believe council still has the ability to make a departure from that, if I understand the nature of the resolution and the council's
What do you say about that? You're gonna say it one more time.
the latitude that they have. We can double check that for you.
Are
and
they able to make a departure by revising a resolution, or the resolution just isn't binding from the beginning?
yeah, that's the question that I would need to ask about that. I'm trying to remember if there's some language in there around that about their deliberations.
If you get out, but if you don't get out, you're gonna have.
I don't want to undo what's been done. I just want to understand, like, if we do another NOFA round, what are we really working with? What is subjective and what's binding?
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfectly logical question, given kind of how things have gone in the recent past with the commission's recommendations and the departure from that with the council decisions. Let me comb back through that, and then I will add that as a discussion question for the director about how binding the resolution is.
Let's have questions on the resolution itself.
No, not really. I mean, my understanding was that they can override anything regardless, whether there's a resolution or not. It's the guidelines that we have to operate within, but not necessarily the guidelines that they have to operate within. Now, I don't understand why. I'd love to understand why. I'm a what and why kind of person, but yeah, just making sure that we have a better understanding of what we're working with.
And everyone's gonna be in the same place, so it's gonna be hard and tight, but it's not on, so it's not hot.
And I guess along those lines, I would reiterate that the commission decided to move forward with a recommendation for the entirety of what could be allocated towards an award that's 68 and change. They would need to approve that request. So, this would have that process, just like the previous NOFAs, we would take it to council to approve that. And then if they voted to do that, then we would go through that NOFA process, and we would bring it back to the commission, and we would have that same deliberation on the scoring rubric, et cetera, in terms of scoring applications, et cetera.
I'm just kidding.
Is this resolution part of the promotional materials when we announce that it's available? Do we give this actual resolution language to the applicant so they can read through it as well? I feel like I saw some details in here that I wasn't previously aware of and had gone through several NOFA rounds at this point.
Yeah, and we certainly can. So my intention is to update a new landing page for any upcoming NOFAs. I know that we've done excerpts from these resolutions, but I wasn't privy to where all of these lived previously. So now I know, and I've made a specific folder for all of these, and I have them. So I can do all of that in the above. I can put excerpts in, and then I can add a link for folks to go through the latest and greatest resolution, so that everybody has the same documentation to work from.
That's great. One other place in here I had a question was not so much a question, it was clarity around the time sensitive loan or grant program. I always thought it was weird that people could only apply for a time sensitive grant once a year when we do the NOFAs, and the way the resolution's written, that was not the intention, that we could receive an application at any time in the year. I don't know if we just haven't had any applications like that, or if we just didn't communicate that was available at any time of year. So if you're working on that landing page, that might be something to think through as well. Do we put information on there about the time sensitive loan? Are we even trying to continue that option, or just do the once a year options?
Yeah, I think that's something that I was turning over as well, and is a really relevant question because previously the way it was structured and I was kind of instructed to do it was to post all of them and see who wanted to apply for what. But going back to the resolution, that was something that I became aware of as well during the research. And um, we, I mean, since I've been here, there hasn't been, that I'm aware of, there hasn't been a request for a time sensitive loan. Just someone coming to us requesting to apply for one outside of a NOFA process. So, whether that is just kind of lack of, and some of that, I would say, we've had new software for, our city web pages and everything installed during this time frame since I arrived. So that may be some of it, but not all of it. So I don't know how much education was done prior to my arrival around that, but we can certainly discuss that. I think part of it as well, something for the commission to consider is, we have this sum in there and it would make, a nicer, a slightly larger award than what we've been able to do previously. But there was some language in the resolution that I was reflecting on about sources of revenue for that fund and, where it could potentially come from. And, um, does the commission have an interest in pursuing other types of grants to start to replenish that fund as well? So there could be, funds available for any time sensitive grant award. You know what I mean? Like if we deplete the fund with this NOFA posting that we've been talking about, then what happens to that time sensitive grant if there's no funds available any longer? So I think that's also part of that discussion.
I'm certainly open to the idea of talking about how that gets replenished. And would also be interested in a true time sensitive option, grant or loan or either, that folks could apply for at any time. I do remember before you came, Leanne, one or two organizations who checked the box time sensitive loan or grant, but it wasn't truly time sensitive. It occurred during the once a year application. So the box was checked for time sensitive, but it didn't feel time sensitive and we didn't handle it in that way.
Okay. Yeah, and I just looking at the numbers for the breakdowns per each program type, it did seem like that was the avenue for the largest kind of one-time award and the most straight, in terms of a grant allocation. I think the way all of those splits worked, it was potentially the avenue for the highest award amount. So I could understand perhaps the motivation there. So
Other questions, comments about the resolution?
Is this open? I know we had discussed this before, open to landlords that want to do upgrades or things in which that they can still provide affordable housing without increasing the rent of their properties?
yeah, so let's see. I think that language is in there.
There is some language about landlords and upgrades. I just wanted to make sure that we're not talking about two separate things.
Yeah, so the project provides new affordable housing or new affordability through retention or rehabilitation of existing housing within the city. The greater number of units provided, the higher the ranking of the project shall be given. So to me, that speaks to like multifamily residential. Whether existing or proposed.
I believe, am I incorrect in remembering that we had something previously submitted by a landlord and one of the disqualifying pieces ended up being not being able to prove 40 years of affordable housing, you know what I mean? Like, I think I feel like that was a catch on something, right? Like an individual landlord that happens to be doing, maybe affordable rent or something, but is not necessarily licensed by the state, or becomes the holdup on that. Am I wrong?
That sounds right.
We definitely had a conversation about how do we guarantee it's affordable for X number of years. We also had the question of how do we know the family renting it was low income without requiring the landlord to reveal sensitive information. And I don't think we ever came to an answer about that. I would assume that our only way to like guarantee that is to take whatever the median area income is and 80% of that for calculating the rent, and whatever that rental unit is charging has to be that or less. Because we didn't want to require that landlords reveal, people's tax returns or things like that, or their pay stubs.
Right.
But this resolution
then-
definitely says for-profit small landlords are welcome. How you actually work that out has been a little more challenging.
Right. And I think that was my bigger question, how do we potentially market to them, and how do we actually meet their needs? Naturally, my dog started barking, so sorry.
Well, I certainly have a preference, but my preference would be that for-profits are only eligible for the loans. The loan terms are way more favorable than, any other kind of loan that they could get. And they're repaid in relatively a short amount of time. And I don't know that you would need to worry about the long-term affordability of it, so long as it's affordable in the immediate and they're paying back with a little bit of interest, not a lot. To me, that's a better option. But that would require changing the resolution itself.
Right. Yeah. And I think that marketing for that and putting that information out, changing the resolution to where it matches that, could benefit long-term other projects potentially.
And I'll offer that is something that we did discuss internally, that during deliberations with the commission, if y'all did come to a consensus around a desire to update the resolution, that we could look at that.
Would an update need to happen before the next NOFA, or these are two separate concepts?
That would, I guess, be up to the desire of the commission. So as it stands, as it's written currently, we could post a NOFA if council, agrees to that, and just move forward with that. So you could decouple it from that, and if you did desire, the commission did desire to update, the resolution, that could have its own process as well. If, however, the commission desires to incorporate the new terms into a potential NOFA, you would need to, start that resolution amendment process. And, we'd need to get scheduled, the scheduling going and all of that. And well, I guess first we would need to, staff would need to draft amendments per recommendations from the Affordable Housing Commission. And we may need to meet again to make sure everyone approves the language and then bring that to council for approval. And maybe, we might be able to work on both things concurrently where we're recommending amendments to the resolution and a NOFA that reflects that and take them both to council at the same time, perhaps. Yeah. And then get all that scheduled.
That would be great.
Yeah. I think if we could present maybe both simultaneously, if that would allow potentially desirable changes and also, not waiting another 6 months before the funds are available. I'd be interested in that. This is just my personal, but I'd be curious what you all would think on the funding application request. What would you all think about recommending to council that it say, so where it has organization name and then to the side, they check a box if they're for profit or nonprofit. If we suggested putting, for profit seeking loan, nonprofit seeking grant. And just kind of distinguish that those are the two tracks available. Council would have to approve that. The resolution might need to change to reflect that, but that might solve one of the issues that we ran into a few years ago.
Yeah, I think that would be ideal if we could present that.
I'm in favor of that as well.
Any thoughts on that, Randy or Judy?
I'd be in favor of it.
And I'm open to.
Can staff ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Would this be for a competitive award, a competitive grant or loan award, or would it be towards a different funding program allocation?
Right now, all we have is the competitive awards program, NOFA, in front of us. But would the same distinction make sense for a time-sensitive one? To let a nonprofit make a time-sensitive request for a grant, or maybe that doesn't make sense. I could certainly see a small landlord needing a time-sensitive loan in the middle of the year. I don't know that a nonprofit would need a time-sensitive grant as urgently.
Right, I would agree with that.
I'd love to see some of our small mom and pop landlords know about this and have a meaningful way to use it.
How would they have a meaningful, that's a great question in the respect of how would they even need that versus just going to a bank and getting a quick loan if they needed that to make updates on their property versus
Well,
coming to the asking it.
A lot of those loans are higher interest, higher fees, so it would cost them a significant amount. So oftentimes that requires them to increase their rent substantially. So it takes them out of the affordable housing potentially. I mean, at least that's my track, looking at some of those loans and even talking to some other people who own rental properties. Oftentimes when they have to do those repairs, they then have to increase their rent. because those loans are
So are we
are
talking
associated. Oh,
like
I'm so sorry.
five?
Please, Judy.
Are we talking 5 groups or one group or 100 nonprofits or for profits? Is it worth the time for the city to be in that business of quick loans for profit small businesses?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I'll direct folks, it looks like in section 7.2C of the attachment of that latest resolution, it does speak to what Commissioner Cooley is referencing in terms of more favorable loan terms. To Commissioner Brown's point, I we would have to have an internal discussion, I think, amongst staff, how we would be administering a loan and how often we would have the capacity to do that. And it does look like, just looking back at that time-sensitive loan, it is a loan or a grant. So I think the commission would need to come to a consensus about which, if the commission desired to have a potential NOFA, whether it's now or later, with kind of this idea that we're talking about, which avenue and how often. Time sensitive speaks to that the intention or the spirit of the resolution speaks to, you know, more than once a year. So I think we need to be realistic about how often staff could administer that, but also back to that piece about replenishing the funds. So that may be a longer term project, perhaps. But I think a worthwhile investigation, and something potentially to look forward to, in the longevity of the Affordable Housing Commission.
And I have another question. Are there other cities that are doing something similar to what we're doing to see how to mimic that, if that's a good practice or not? To either way, one way, a good way, whatever. If it's so with the same m- pot of money, how are other cities doing that? And how are they using that? How are they using their funds?
Mhm. Yes, certainly we can do some reaching out to our neighbors and see how they're. We have good relations with McMinnville. We could ask those relevant questions.
I know Hillsborough has a program as well. And that's kind of where I was thinking about that, but I don't have all of the details what that looks like. And Judy brings up a fantastic point. This isn't something that we can suddenly become lenders. So there certainly has to be some very limited and tight parameters if it's something that we did.
Yeah. So for instance, and I think this is probably obvious, but planning staff would have to be working in coordination with our finance department to make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible, and yeah, that staff can handle the workflow. I don't potentially see it being an obstacle as so long as it's, um, first, I think the funds would need to be replenished, and as long as it's not multiple times a year.
I have a related but different thought. Everything that I was kind of imagining, small landlords, smaller loans, um, coming from the time sensitive process, I think could actually be accomplished in the rehabilitation loan program. Are we in any way bound to say like all four of these types kind of need to be available all the time, or are we able to kind of selectively choose? We're going to do the competitive grant program and the rehabilitation loan program. Because what we've been describing with the small landlords, it kind of seems like that could be accomplished with the rehabilitation one, which is only loans. And it explicitly says the applicant has to demonstrate that the rehabilitation could not be accomplished using conventional loan programs. Preference given to anyone who owns 10 or fewer units, and it's about existing units being made safer. They're not building new stuff. That's not what's going on, but existing units to be safe and decent, whatever decent means.
I can weigh in a little bit there. I think yes. Let's see. Are you speaking to the manufactured home rehabilitation program?
On page 20, 7.3, the title is just rehabilitation loan program.
Yes.
And then it just uses the phrase dwelling. It doesn't specifically say manufactured.
Yeah, that's interesting. So yes, and we've had more inquiries about the manufactured home rehabilitation program. And
That one's a grant, right?
yeah, and that we worked with Yamhill County. We've had conversations with them about that type of program, but yes, I think
I wonder if the rehab loan one would be useful because the only applicant we've had since I've been on here, and I'm in year 5, that was a for-profit, was a home trying to repair the driveway. It was uneven and it wasn't ADA wheelchair safe. And so that probably would have fallen under this rehabilitation loan program.
mhm. Yeah, so sounds like there's language in here. The city manager would designate a loan officer. So we would need to get some information internally, coordination with the city manager, finance department, and planning staff.
And if they don't have internal capacity to do that, could our advice just be to update the resolution so that we're only offering the programs we genuinely have capacity to do?
I think that's a valid question. And something, so it's my understanding, just kind of what I've been told after my arrival is that we did have prior a designated housing planner, and that is what she did full time. And so I think there was just more staff capacity. And then I guess simultaneously the funds have been dwindling, right? Through previous awards and then the sunsetting of the CET. So, yeah, I think these are all relevant, timely questions for where the commission is now and where that fund is now, and ways to move forward in a way that makes sense for staff and with the funds that we have. And then again, kind of that longer term project about how do we envision procuring more in the way of funding pathways to replenish that fund.
So it's sounding like council's gonna have a lot of conversation topics.
And just to, state the obvious, I'm happy to work up whatever the commission, you know, desires and um, votes to do. I'm happy to do that.
So are we deciding on if we want that resolution to be modified and then what questions we want the council to be going over with the staff, city staff? Such as the question of is it do we have time? Do the staff have time to do a loan program like that? And about how much is it worth it? The balance of that. I mean, again, that's one of my questions. So I don't know where we're moving forward as a commission.
Would we be recommending like multiple things at once for them to consider, or like consider this, then consider this, then consider this? How does council prefer to have that content?
Yeah. I would recommend that the commission establish some agreed upon goals. And some of that can be some of the homework that y'all have questions around. So we can have internal conversations about staff capacity, administering grants versus loans. I would like to know which type of program the commission is interested in posting a NOFA for, and the monetary amounts. Do we want to continue thinking about the total award, that 68 and change mark? Or are we thinking of smaller awards, kind of in line with some of the other, rehabilitation, grant or loan avenue? Kind of, how would you like to direct my efforts to bring you the answers you need to make a proposal for council to consider?
Okay, well, maybe let's review some of the possibilities that we've talked about so far. So the competitive awards program, as written, is for profit or nonprofit. I heard clarify, but I heard consensus around suggesting this become for-profit grant. No, sorry, nonprofit grants. Unsure about for-profit loan. Given the amount of money that we have, I would have a hard time imagining there would be a for-profit loan in this category that didn't make sense in a different category. But also for the sake of simplicity, it might, I don't know if it would be, okay, I'm gonna stick with this. Do we like the idea of recommending that the competitive awards program grant be for only nonprofits?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Randy, Judy, thumbs up or nod or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing, Leanne, is that if there's going to be a grant in the competitive awards program, we suggest limiting that to nonprofits only.
Okay.
Do we want to recommend the competitive awards program still be open to for-profit, but in a loan-only capacity? Or recommend we funnel them to one of the other categories?
Again, the loan process of the city being in the business of giving out a $10,000 loan and then getting repaid in a couple of years, how much time does that take versus just giving them the grant? The balance of that just seems either profit or nonprofit, a small amount of money. Is it not? It's always a value to give money away. It's always fun to give money away or share money with the right organizations. But what's the best value we can to use our staff wisely? I guess that's the big thing.
My assumption is that when you give money away with no repayment expectation, is that sometimes then it has the long-term staff obligation of checking in with them 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road to see if they're still in compliance. And for the kinds of projects that our for-profit folks would apply for, that we have money to help, that feels like a huge burden to me. Whereas nonprofits typically they are in their business longer, their nonprofit work longer, and they typically have internal ways of verifying eligibility long term anyway.
Some organizations, some nonprofit.
Yeah. It varies. So maybe we don't have an answer on that yet, but maybe that's a question for council is, should the competitive awards program be available as a loan to for-profits? And then on 7.2, time-sensitive loan or grant, should we even continue to have that? If we have it, does it make sense to have the loan or grant option, both of them? And do the staff have capacity to even handle that on a rolling basis, or would it make more sense at this time to retire that particular type? Does anyone want to? Those are questions. Does anyone want to make a statement on those?
I think would be valuable to really think about the viability of that program going forward. Just even thinking about the fairness of it, right? In terms of, once someone knows about a program like that, who's to say you can't, which, I mean, obviously it exists now, but, like it just, you could apply and apply again. And then how do we then say no to someone, right, that keeps asking?
Squeaky wheel
Because
gets
no one
behind.
else, no one else does a time sensitive. I don't know. Like my mind goes to that. I do like our competitive sort of, application process where there's a time frame that you can submit it, and then be reviewed, and where we review all of them and then make our recommendation to council. I'm not sure that we should be in the time sensitive loan or grant program going forward, given staff capacity and just limited funds. My thoughts.
Does anyone else feel strongly about getting rid of the time sensitive option?
I don't think that the long-term viability of time sensitive for staffing purposes is reasonable. Yeah, I'm kind of back and forth. I can see the benefit of it, but Megan and Judy have both brought up some really, really great points. Overall, the city doesn't have the staffing to continuously manage these. So having those set times and parameters, I think is a more efficient way to provide these grants and or loans. See, I'm still open to the loan potential portion of things. But I would agree those time sensitive, I think we could probably do away with that, just for staffing purposes.
We haven't used it in practice. I mean, it's been on paper, but we haven't used it in practice in at least 5 years. I don't know if it's ever been utilized. And again, there were some applicants who checked the box for time sensitive, but the way that the NOFA happened, it happened all at once on a deadline. It wasn't rolling any time of the year. Randy and Judy, would you be open to recommending to council removing that particular program, the time sensitive program?
Yeah, I don't see an issue with recommending that. I think one of the things I'm flipping back and forth with is the staffing. And Megan, you brought up a great point, but we also have that same staffing model with the rehab loan too, I think, don't we? I mean, you still have to have staffing for that process as well. I'm kind of flip-flopping back and forth here, guys. Sorry. I think if we haven't used it in 5 years, maybe we should really heavily consider not having it any longer. I think that's where I'm ending up at.
I would be in favor of recommending we remove that program. If nothing else, it's one less NOFA that the staff have to put out there.
When was the last time you said 5 years, Randy, or somebody said 5 years? That was the last
We
time.
haven't used it in at least 5 years because that's how long I've been on this group, and I don't know the history before that.
Yeah.
So
I
I
can,
could
yeah,
recommend
I can
board.
speak a little bit to that. So we did have an allocation, but it was at the same time that we posted all of the others. So it's, to my knowledge, and I didn't see anything in the files either where someone had come to the city and requested a time-sensitive award outside of a NOFA posting. So that's my understanding.
So it's been used, it just wasn't used the way it's truly written.
The spirit of it, I think you're accurate. Yeah.
Okay. So take that recommendation to council that it doesn't seem to be a super useful piece of the overall program at this time. And then we have two rehabilitation programs. One is a loan, one is a grant specifically for manufactured homes. So the way this is written, and the loans seem to be available for any kind of housing, not just manufactured homes.
I think that's accurate.
Okay. So would this be would the grant one, 7.4, would the grant one be available to for profit or only nonprofit?
Is that a question for staff?
How is it written now? And then what would we suggest?
Right. As it's written now in 7.4A, it says the money's to individuals or local nonprofit organizations.
Oh, it could go to the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's how it's currently written, it looks like.
That's not for profit or nonprofit, right?
Correct. It says individuals. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Okay. Do we know if we've ever had an individual apply to repair their own mobile home?
There was discussion around that, not long after I arrived. So this was about 3 years ago. I don't think anything ever came from it. Yeah, and then we did give an award to the Yamhill County Housing Authority, and they have that program where they're, administering repairs to, various dwellings, and they have that structure in there where they're vetting everyone. And so they did receive an award for their program, but I don't think it was strictly under the manufactured housing umbrella. I do believe that some of the homes that they were repairing were, well, they received, trying to remember if they received CET. I think the Newburgh Affordable House, the Yamhill County received CET funds. And then the Newburgh Area Habitat for Humanity, I hope I don't have that backwards, received funds from the trust fund. But they both have that internal vetting process where and they were readily able to prove financials and all of that.
So a question that I have about these two is about their funding sources. You had said there's X number of dollars available for the competitive loan project program, but is that actually the amount that's available for all four of these programs? Or do they all have their own dollar amounts that could be available?
Yes, so it's my understanding that it's only under the competitive award that we could post ANOVA for that total amount. The other funding pathways, it's a percentage of what is in that account. And it's, I believe it's explicitly stated in a section of the resolution. Loan terms are spelled out per area, and then let's see.
I don't see the percentage right here, just that loans could be between 5 and 15,000.
Yeah, it may be in for each pathway, but for instance, in section 5 under fund administration, 5.5, as a target in any given year, up to 60% of the trust fund will be available for project loans, and up to 25% will be available for project grants. The remaining 15% of the trust fund will be available for project contingencies through grants and/or loans. And then in any given year, at least 50% of the 5.6, 50% of the available funds within the trust fund shall be available for use through the competitive awards program. And then that key, it's just one sentence in there, but in any given year, the city council may make an exception to the standard to take advantage of affordable housing opportunities. So that's the way to make a larger fund available.
Would anyone else have interest in recommending that all three of these be made available? And have the different amounts available for each, or staff time wise, is it better to do one at a time? Because I can imagine if someone's looking for information about affordable housing assistance, it might be helpful to see, oh, there's 3 different kinds. I need to pick which one makes most sense for my project and apply for that one. But still do it once a year rather than 3 different times a year.
Yes, and so I think that's in line with previous practice is having multiple and they choose which one makes the most sense. Now, not making all of, I guess the question I would have for the director would be, as the resolution stands now, would we be obligated to make all of the funding pathways available within a NOFA? Or do we have that leeway to pick and choose which ones? And maybe we do. I mean, it's just in there a couple of times, but there's like a sentence or two within the resolution that says those funds are available, like basically intimating at any given time you may only have this much money, and so it only may make sense to do this type of an award. So, and that's kind of, I think, where our discussion was last time when we were thinking about there's not a whole lot of money in that account. Do we want to try to do this NOFA for that full amount and get somebody a little bit further down the road? So yeah, there's that language in there about the competitive award. And yeah, I can certainly ask.
I'd be happy to see either option, just the competitive award or all three of them. I just don't want to do 3 rounds in 1 year at different times. That feels like spreading out the work. We'd kind of lose track of which one we're in at the moment, but that's just
So we're talking about the 3 that we're sort of hovering on right now is the competitive, the rehabilitation loan, and the manufactured rehabilitation grant. So
those were the 3 I had in mind that we were talking about. If we're recommending getting rid of the time sensitive one.
okay.
And we did give a large chunk recently to manufactured home rehabilitation. So, there's, I think, a good argument to say, like, we've done some good work on that one, and it wouldn't be terrible if we didn't offer that one right now. But 1 or 3, but not one right now, second one in 3 months, and the third one in 6 months.
Casey, as I review the qualifications, it looks like it, in terms of the statute here, the resolution points that those other 3 programs outside of the competitive one do not require having an RFP. It does not even mention doing an RFP. Is that correct, Leon? There's nothing that actually goes out regarding those programs. It just sits on the website.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back and tease through it. I can speak to what I observed as the tradition, and that they are posted at the same time and folks can choose in any yearly NOFA what makes sense for their project or program.
But it's not like a time frame is put on those programs in terms of an application deadline. Is that correct?
No,
Practice there was.
yeah. We typically handled it in the same time frame.
Okay.
A posting is up for however
Okay.
long. Folks need to submit their complete application materials by this date. And then we close that and we start our review process.
Right. And then I would recommend, if we're going to change some of this resolution language or recommend that to the council, I think the language should be identical across all whatever programs we're doing in terms of how the process works, to be very clear. So that the RFP is for, all of the programs that we're recommending, and it's a time frame and you must apply sort of thing, because that's not clear when as each of the program breakdowns for the rehabilitation loan program as well as the manufactured program And the other one, time sensitive. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, time sensitive would not have, I guess, an RFP per se.
Okay. So this would fall under amendments to the resolution. Okay.
Yes. It would basically be adding the 7.1 point A language to any of the additional programs outside of the competitive awards program.
I was just noticing that the manufactured home rehab grant says they only have to guarantee that the home will be occupied by low-income family for 5 years. Did the loan have a similar timeline? The rehab loan? Oh, it just says for the loan term. The applicant shall enter into an agreement guaranteeing the dwellings will only be occupied by families or individuals meeting the income guidelines for the loan term. And the loan term standard is 5 years. So that's just up to 5 years. Neither of those have the ongoing affordability requirements that the competitive one has.
Which that makes more sense, given the difference in amounts that you're kind of talking about.
Any other things we wanted to ask council or recommend to council about this?
I would like us to consider getting a little more specific about a nonprofit, given our discussions over the last year of what defines a nonprofit, and that it be a 501c3 licensed nonprofit at time of application for the competitive program.
Where would be the right spot in this resolution to
That's a good question.
clarify that?
Hmm.
Would it be in the competitive section? In the 7.1 section?
I would.
Yeah, that might be the best spot.
Or was it back in the 5s where we had the rubric? No, 5 wasn't the rubric. Where was the rubric at, Leanne?
Section 8.
8?
Mm.
Okay. And this rubric only applies to the competitive grant or loan. Doesn't apply to the other two.
I think that's correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, if we're recommending that the council limits the competitive one to grants for nonprofits, then I guess with that is to clarify that nonprofits need to be,
The definition of a nonprofit.
yeah, to have a definition in there.
We can add a definition. Okay.
To avoid the problem that obviously happened earlier with Spark.
I think it would be a lot cleaner if we could get the resolution revised and approved by council before we post a NOFA. I don't quite understand how we would do it any other way, Leanne. Is there a way? Or is that just going to be too messy?
You're asking for my recommendation. I recommend that y'all all, and I'll read this back out, and I think y'all have to agree or make a motion for these revisions. And then I'll come back with a draft for y'all to look at and approve and or make edits to. And then you'll send me off with that either for another round or to council. And then I think my experience is the more things to review and that sort of promotes talking points, perhaps the more deliberation can happen, and sometimes it's easier to move forward with something, keeping it simpler initially. So we can also, after I bring back the revision, revisit that and see if we would like to just go to council with an updated resolution that fits
Okay.
the
So
current.
then they're not wordsmithing it in their own meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, that way, and I think it's a good time to look at it in terms of staffing and the funds that we have available. And that's the reason for the updates. And overall, I still think they're pretty minor. We're not talking about a major overhaul, really. Just some tweaks to make things more practical. So
Do you want us to give a major overhaul?
staff will do their best to facilitate that if that's the desire of the commission. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my personal philosophy, to try to keep things as clear and objective as possible and do what makes practical sense.
So then we would review the changed draft, the revised version, and then recommend that whole revision to council.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we allowed to review that and give our feedback via email, or could we schedule another meeting so that we're not waiting 4 months to review that?
Yes. We can schedule another meeting, and I want Faye to weigh in here about process.
Sorry about that. Yes, so if you give me a few dates that everybody is available, then I just need to confirm that with our city recorder, and then I can send everybody a confirmed invite for an additional meeting. So I just need to do that extra step. So what dates works for everybody for the additional meeting? Like, do we want to do it within the next couple weeks or just the next month?
Well, how long does Leanne need to get the draft prepped?
I'd say a couple of weeks to make sure that all my other workflows stay moving and we get internal review. We may need to, as Scott and the director and I are looking at this, we may need to check in with the city manager as well as finance staff and just kind of go over the practicalities of what the commission is deliberating and proposing.
Okay. So exactly 2 weeks from today is August 18. Does anyone have a conflict in that 4 o'clock window, August 18?
Let me check.
Unfortunately, I do.
Samantha does. Okay. I have a conflict on the 25th.
We don't have to keep it on a Tuesday either.
Okay. That might make it more complicated to schedule.
Okay.
I don't know, but
We could do like the September 1st.
does anyone have a conflict September 1st?
I'm available September 1st and September 8th.
Okay.
I
Same.
will be out of town, but I might be able to get I might be able to get internet.
For the first?
Yeah, that's okay. Put it down if most people can be there.
Okay. And we're just holding this right now, right? It's not confirmed yet.
No, it's not confirmed. We'll hold it and then I have to confirm it with our city recorder.
Great. And then the second option, did anyone have a conflict with September 8th?
No.
Okay, so that's our second hold.
Okay. And then
Did you
what
need a
else?
third?
Yeah, how about how about the September 15th? We'll just go 3 in a row. How's everybody looking for the 15th?
I'm available.
Yep.
I'm available.
Samantha's good. Randy? He's checking.
I'm
I'm
good. I'm
ready
good.
to go out of town, so I might be not available, but I'm available right now.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So September 15 also a hold.
All right, so I will go ahead and confirm a date with RC Recorder and email everybody with an invite for the actual date.
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay. Are we ready for staff updates?
Sure. Good news, and this I wouldn't have been able to give the good news last Tuesday. So we have the intergovernmental agreement draft for the housing capacity analysis work. So yay. So we're doing our internal review of that document. It looks pretty close to that last kind of draft between us and our consultant partner, Cascadia Partners, and DLCD. So they just, their legal team took it through the washer and did their structure for that legal document. So we're looking at that. It looks like the content's all still there. They've added their legal stuff. And then we will bring that to council for their approval. And then we'll launch that work. So just kind of as a reminder, the Planning Commission is going to sort of serve as that municipal review body. And the Affordable Housing Commission is welcome to attend those meetings. Not every meeting of the Planning Commission will be having content from that work, but we will make the commission aware of the meetings where we will be using that body to discuss the housing capacity analysis work. And y'all can join at your discretion. And we would, love to have you. And yeah.
Is that also by Zoom?
We're going to try to make it available as a hybrid. So yeah, so folks can attend in person or online to those meetings. That's correct, right, Faye? We're going to keep that a hybrid platform.
Yes, all Planning Commission meetings are hybrid, so they're Zoom and in person.
Great. Yeah, so we're glad we've kind of been in this holding pattern for a few months while they're legal. And I know that the state had a lot of those grant agreements to administer. So Newburgh wasn't the only one kind of hanging out and waiting for their final draft document to come through. So that's good. That means, we'll have more data to look at and understand our housing situation and all the facets therein, and we can learn more about our community. So happy.
Good news. I like it. Is there a staff update on any other thing? We just had one on the agenda, right?
Yeah, I think that's it for now. Yeah.
Okay. Anything that any commissioners want to share?
I was curious if you have an update, Leon, on where things stand with Spark in terms of the money being released to them, if that has happened or not.
Yeah, I do not. So there was, I did see an email, and this was a while back, like maybe as much as 2 months ago. And it was an inquiry from the director to our legal team. And as of that email, they're not out of, I guess, the legal process, and no monies have been dispersed. So.
Okay, I appreciate you keeping us updated on where that stands, since that's such a significant amount of money for affordable housing in our community.
Anything else from commissioners? Alrighty. Does everyone have on their calendars our next meeting, October 27? That's not actually our next meeting, but that is one of our next meetings.
Yes.
Okay. We still have those hold date meetings that we're squeezing in, but at least October 27th happening. Okay. Y'all want to sign off? You ready for that?
Have a great August.
Yeah.
All right, 5:23, we're adjourned.
Thank
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you all.